to give up certain things in life. I'll give up that one in a heartbeat. Take a deep breath. We are on the path to freedom. We're going to repeat our treatment for freedom together aloud. I speak my word for myself, my center, and all its members and friends. I know love as the only reality. I am created out of love. Love is what I am. I know this love as absolute freedom in every area of my life, the life of my center, and all who call it home. I know our center's mortgages are paid in full, and I claim for all of us financial freedom with all debts paid and cleared. I release any sense of struggle or wrongdoing. I live in an abundant universe where there is more than enough for all. We experience freedom in every moment by always having more than enough money, vibrant health, and loving relationships. We are who we have come here to be. With hearts open wide, we see the world through the eyes of love. We are blessed, we are rich, and we are free. And so it is. And we use our points of power. I always pay attention. I always tell the truth and tell it quickly. I always ask for what I want when I want it. I always take total responsibility for my experience. I always keep my agreements. And so it is. Johnson.
Thank you, Barbara. It's so much easier to just say thank you, Barbara, than what Barbara does with the band, so it's kind of nice the way this works out. I love you guys, but sure enough, I'd leave somebody out. Speaking of that, last week I was in Denver, in the Denver area. I went to church at, and I'll talk more about this, but I went to church at Foothills Center for Spiritual Living. Judy Morley, who was one of the 6 ministers that passed our ordination panel last week. So we have 6 newly ordained ministers. We also have 16 newly licensed ministers who all gathered in Denver, and I had the great joy of spending time with. They're an amazing group of people. We are growing not only in numbers, but in consciousness. It's really wonderful. Yay. And all of this flicking and stuff that's going on, we've upgraded our system. Can't you tell? We're working on it. We're working on it. So we did 16 licenses, 16 ordinations, and 3 newly licensed practitioners here at our center. And Barbara did a great job. Barbara was actually on the panel that worked with them. So was Amika Venturi and Carol Byro. Will you two please stand and let us acknowledge you for your good work? And there was another player in all of this. Janelle Moore was the teaching assistant for this class. She helped shepherd these people through. So come here. Barbara, I don't even know that Barbara got to meet Janelle because she was in with all the people that were doing this. But it's no light thing to shepherd people into their practitionership. You did a great job. I believe I was there when you passed your panel. And that was a great moment for all of us. So we're going to bless this one as well. You ready? We love you, we bless you, and we know you are perfect. Hey, thank you, Janelle. We are all about acknowledgement at this center. Okay, so I was at Foothills Center for Spiritual Living. They call it Foothills, but by golly, they look like our mountains. Up in Evergreen, Colorado, and it was a wonderful Sunday. And my friend Judy Morley gave a great talk, so much so that I stole most of it. So if you're watching from Foothills, yes, you know this is where I got it. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Anyway, what Judy called her talk was collaboration versus competition. She said the versus was a little joke. And I got it, but Bradley actually took me to a place of remembering another verses that I've always really appreciated. This is from George Carlin, who wrote Baseball versus Football. Baseball and football are different in several interesting ways. For example, baseball is played on a diamond in a baseball park. Football is played on a gridiron in a stadium sometimes called Soldier Field or War Memorial Stadium. Baseball begins in the spring when life is fresh and anew. Football begins in the fall when everything is dying. In baseball, you wear a cap. In football, you wear a helmet. Football is concerned with downs. What down is it? Baseball is concerned with ups. Who's up? Are you up? No, he's up. In football, the specialist comes in to kick. In baseball, the specialist comes in to give another player some relief. In football, you're penalized. In baseball, you make an error. Oops. Football has hits, clips, spears, blocks, piling on, late hits, unnecessary roughness, and personal fouls. Baseball has a sacrifice fly. Football is played in the rain, the sleet, the snow, the hail, and mud. Whatever the weather, the battle continues. In baseball, if it rains, we don't come out to play, or we stop playing if it starts raining. Baseball has a 7th inning stretch. Football has the 2-minute warning. Baseball has no limits. We don't know when it's going to end. There might be extra innings. Football is rigidly timed, and it will end even if it takes sudden death. In baseball, during the game, in the stands, it's kind of a picnic feeling. Emotions run high and low, but there's not much unpleasantness. In football, you can be sure that at least 27 times during the game, you or someone near you will be perfectly capable of taking the life of a fellow human being, preferably a stranger. And finally, the objectives of the two games are totally different. In football, the objective is for the quarterback, otherwise known as the field general, to be on target with his aerial assault, riddling the defense with hitting his receivers with deadly accuracy in spite of the impending blitz, which causes him to work from the shotgun. While short bullet passes and long bombs, he marches his troops into enemy territory, balancing his aerial assault with a sustained ground attack, which punches holes in the opponent's defensive line. In baseball, the object is to go home and be safe. Thank you, George Carlin. We love you wherever you are. So this idea of competition, and I'm going to admit it first up, I'm a very competitive person, and it has caused me great pain in my life. And I'll talk more about that in a second. I want to give you another example of place in that we see the idea that competition is considered good, and that's in our politics. But do you think that's gotten a little out of whack? Yes. There was a day in many of our lifetimes where it really was more about collaboration, and even though there were great differences in how people thought the country should move forward, people like Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill could sit down over a meal and work things out. We can't hardly get people in the same room today to talk about where we need to go. So there's some work to do to get us back to a place where we can collaborate as a nation, as a culture. And that's something that I pray that we are working on. This idea of moving from being in competition, where you have to have a winner, where you're looking for a winner, which implies that you must have a loser. The idea of working into a way of being that is collaborative, of working together, doesn't necessarily come natural because we are taught to be competitive. And I was in, I lettered in 3 sports in high school. I ran for class office twice. I was all about competition. And I got my share of losses in all of that. And not that we don't need to have some system to decide or choose who's going to do what. Those things are just part of our culture. Maybe someday we'll learn how to do it in another way, but right now that's how it works. And because of that, I think that I have this inner need, or have in the past had this inner need to really work from a competitive viewpoint. And it's really much harder You know, it takes a lot more energy, and there's a really good chance you're going to lose when you play that game. So I'm kind of getting a little tired of losing in my life. So I think I'm going to work on collaboration from now on. And there are, yay! So with the help of Dr. Judy at Foothills in Evergreen, Colorado, I want to introduce you to 4 concepts this morning, 4 ideas on how you can move from being competitive to being collaborative. These are the 4 that she shared with me. I'm close. I changed them a little bit. I have to. I'm competitive. There are 4. And let's see what, oh, no. I want to share with you a Wallace Wattles quote to start this, because I think this is very powerful. Did we turn this thing on? No, we didn't. Here we go. There we go. Riches secured on a competitive plane are never satisfactory and permanent. They are yours today and another's tomorrow. Good lesson from Wallace Wattles in his books, The Science of Getting Rich. Here's the path. The path to move from collaboration, from competition to collaboration. The first step is put people first. It really is all about people. And being in ministry, I figured out that life really is all about people. Barbara, I used to have this joke that I would say to Barbara anytime there was any kind of glitch with anybody, I would say, boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could do church without people? She never thought that was funny. Didn't stop me from saying it regularly. Anyway, the idea of people as being the center of what you do takes us to really a very different realm. Competition requires that we put ourselves first, that our best interest is the most important. When we're in a collaborative state, we're looking at everybody's interests. What really works around the board? What is important to you? What I've learned, I just recently completed a class called The Language of Influence. It was a brilliant class where the teacher really showed us how to guide people toward an outcome that serves them. And that by focusing on what they say their needs are, you'll get to a place where everybody gets to win. And I saw that as we worked through the class. There was all this talk about influence, but the influence was based on what you tell me you want is what I'm going to help you get. And that by doing that, everybody wins. And I believe that there is that way of being in the world. In fact, that class really helped me see that there's that way of being in the world that is very powerful, where if we would simply ask, what's important to you? Sometimes we know what's important to other people. But if we're in a competitive mode, we're going to pay attention to how we can get what we want, whether they get what they want or not. And that really doesn't work anymore. That doesn't create the world that you and I are committed to creating. That limits who we are, holds us back from being who we are. But if we enter into this collaborative state, what we'll do is begin to see that they can have what they want, and I can have what I want too. Now, if they want to play that win-lose competitive game, they may still lose. But I don't play that game. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play a game where everybody gets to win, and if somebody chooses to lose, that's their business. I can honor that and leave them in with that, but I cannot participate in their loss. That doesn't work for me anymore. This idea of being competitive for me and not wanting to lose really showed up the last time, and this was a decade ago, that maybe longer than that Barbara and I played some board games with some friends. And I won every time because I just wanted to win. That was the most important thing. Is that why you play a game? The rest of them were having a really good time, but I was really focused on winning. Don't interrupt me, I'm winning. And that can really get skewed. That can really come out in ways that really doesn't support who you want to be. So maybe there are ways, and by putting people first, that's what we get. I want to share with you a story that Judy talked about that was dazzling. It's an old story. It comes back from, well, old, 1992. I shouldn't say that's old, that dates me. I'm going to share some information here with you. This was March 23rd, 1992. The stands of a decaying Dallas sports arena were packed with pom-poms shaking middle managers and cheering sales reps over the theme of the song Rocky. Who was in the center ring was a Don King-inspired toupee-wearing referee and 2 men who came into the center of the ring. Kirk Killer Herwald, then the CEO of Stevens Aviation, a little-known aviation sales and maintenance company, and Smokin' Herb Kelleher, who was the co-founder and then CEO of Southwest Airlines. They came together for the Malice in Dallas. Anybody ever heard of this? This is amazing. You're going to love this story. What happened is that Southwest Airlines adopted a motto. It was called Plain, no, I'm sorry, it was called Plain Smart. Plain, P-L-A-N-E, smart. Well, the problem is that Stevens Aviation had already copyrighted that phrase as their motto. So what do you do? Well, the head of Stevens realized that he could take them to court and they would have to stop using that phrase, plain smart. But he chose not to do that. He had admired the CEO of Southwest Airlines for years. And so he called him. And they started talking about how they could work this out. They began a process of collaboration. And what came out of it was the Malice in Dallas, where the two of them came center ring in this stadium to arm wrestle for the slogan. Herwald, who was with Stevens, won the match. He won this ridiculous arm wrestling thing. Oh, let me show you some pictures before we get too far along here. There's the match. Doesn't it look like there would be a wrestling match going on there? It was that kind of energy, as you can see, and it says Herb versus Kurt. Here's the two of them in the middle of the match. Southwest Airlines CEO is on the left. He's the gray-haired guy. And the other one is from Stevens Aviation, and he was in his mid-30s when they did this. Herwald won the match. And as soon as he finished the match, what he did was he went over to another stand in the ring, and he signed a document that said that Southwest Airlines could use the slogan. So they got all this publicity. They got a letter from President H.W. Bush. They got a letter from the President of the United States. All of the major networks carried it. And what came out of it was Southwest figured they got about $6 million worth of free advertising. And Stevens Aviation increased their sales annually by 25% for the next 4 years. I know. Here's a quote from Herwald that he gave to a reporter or a writer years later, recalling that experience and the experience for Stevens Aviation employees. They were so proud of the company, so excited for the visibility that Malice in Dallas gave to their work. For months and for years after the event, the change in the company's culture was palpable. Employees felt more connected to one another and to their work because they didn't just take Southwest Airlines to court. They found an interesting way to work it out. They played outside of the box. That's collaboration. That changes the game completely. Thank you guys, that was fun. So put people first, that's the first one we give you. The second one is live life from an ever greater vision. What does that mean? Well, we all have some idea of how we'd like our future to be, but we don't ever want to let that get static. We don't want to have things stay the same. They don't stay the same. Either things reduce in what they are or they increase in what they are. So if we are involved in creating a vision for our lives, the idea is what more is there for us to know? What more is there for us to do? How can we be more engaged in this thing called the evolution of humankind on planet Earth? It's not a stagnant opportunity. It has to be added to again and again. And still in my life, my favorite example of this was when we approached this idea of having one organization teaching the science of mind or representing the work of Ernest Holmes in the world. There are still many communities that are not affiliated with Centers for Spiritual Living, but for over 50 years there were two that were absolutely all the time being separate and claiming that in the world. And along with some of my colleagues, we set forth to bring all that back together. And when Judy talked about this last week, she said, well, you know, there were 5 of us in the United organization, and there were 5 from the international organization that were on this team that put it together. And then we had that one renegade that was a member of both. And she pointed at me. And it's true that when we want to create things in the world, we can't play by the rules somebody else sets. I did a thing on strength. It's called Strength Finders. Anybody heard of Strength Finders? Did that a couple of months ago as a project for our leadership. And as I was reading through the profiles of what they said my strengths meant, one of them said, "You're very comfortable going ahead and doing what you want and asking for forgiveness." And that's sort of how I do it. It doesn't make everybody happy, but what it does is it keeps me fully engaged in the experience of what I'm involved in and seeing my vision out there happening. And do I stumble sometimes? Of course I do, but isn't that just part of life? We can't be afraid of momentary failure if we're working towards something that has great value. So I did. I stepped on some toes in the middle of all that, but as it happens to have turned out, we really did integrate into one organization. Yeah. We started as an independent center, thinking that we didn't want anything to do with either one of them. But then I was absolutely just completely lured into United when they asked me to come and facilitate meetings, and so we did. We joined United, and our beloved friends from Raleigh were actually part of the international group. So if we were living by the rules that existed 10, 15 years ago, they would not be sitting in this room. They would have called on someone else in that other organization to support them. And we would not have the blessing of their presence today and of this interaction. So what we did really does make a difference. And we accomplished great things within our organization, and I think ultimately for the world, because now we are no longer teaching oneness and living in separateness. So we've learned how to do this together, and I think that shows we're practicing what it is that we teach. So the idea that we have an ever greater vision is essential to our flow, to our being present, and to our collaboration with others, so that whatever it is we're working on, it's alive and organic, and it's making a difference. Act congruently. Congruence is such a great word. It's sort of like being impeccable, where your thought and your word and your action all line up. It's the same kind of idea, congruence. Everything is lined up. And what that does is, even though you've got that greater vision that is growing, you are the one that can be relied on to be who you've come here to be, and that everyone knows how you deal with things. I believe that acting congruently allows us, in a community like this, not to be led by the thoughts that I have or that Barbara has, but by the principles that we teach. And that when we're all clear about these principles, it's not about any one person and their ideas and their way of being in the world. It becomes this thing that binds us together, a congruence of principle, of how we live in the world and how we respond to life according to those principles. When you believe that the divine is all there is, that everything dwells within that one mind, it shifts how you play in the world. It kind of calls you out to be who you have come here to be in a better way, because there's no manipulation of it. It's simply the way it is. So there's a story that goes with this that I thought was very powerful and very valuable. And that was a story about our president, Abraham Lincoln. He was a great man, not much of a looker. But I tell you what, I've never seen this picture before. I pulled it up and I kind of got lost in his eyes. What beautiful eyes. What he was known for was that what Abraham Lincoln said, he meant. You could count on him to be exactly the one that was elected, to do the things that were his to do. You know, we've all heard that the Civil War happened because of slavery. Now, I've heard things that Lincoln didn't have this highly evolved sense of who the Africans that had been taken, kidnapped from their homeland and brought to America, that they were absolutely equal to white people. Keeping in mind when they were alive, that can't be a surprise. Yet at the same time, he put forth the emancipation of everyone that was held in a state of slavery, and changed not only this country but the world with that. That is an amazing thing to do. Probably cost him his life. But the idea that someone would do that. So now I have a little story that goes with Abraham Lincoln. In the midst of the Civil War, Lincoln would travel around in a secure coach, a presidential coach, and he had lots of military around him to protect him. And often when he was going from one place to another, he would carry with him a general or, in this case, a colonel on his coach. And in this particular instance, Lincoln had invited a colonel to come on, and the colonel came on, and Lincoln told him, "Thank you for your service, thank you for the good work you're doing in support of our cause." And at some point, the colonel pulled out a flask of whiskey and took a drink. And he said, "Mr. President, would you like a drink?" And the president declined. And the colonel continued to press a little bit, but the president was not interested in drinking. And then he pulled out a couple of cigars and said, "Mr. President, smoke a cigar with me." And Lincoln looked at him, realizing that he'd already declined the whiskey. He said, "May I tell you a story?" "Yes, sir." He said that when he was young, and his mother had gotten very ill, and she didn't expect to live much longer, that she called Lincoln to her bedside and asked him for two things: to never drink whiskey or alcohol, and to never smoke tobacco. And he said, "To this day, I have kept my word to my mother. But if you think it's that important, I'll smoke a cigar with you." The colonel thought about it for a minute, and he stood up, and he saluted his president. And the talk of whiskey and tobacco was over. That's congruence, because he promised his mother decades before. Most people in life don't remember all those things, all those little promises in the moment, and don't follow through on them. What would it hurt? His mother would never know. But he knew. That's congruence. That's what makes a difference. So in your life, if you want to be in a state of collaboration, the people around you must trust that you are who you say you are and that you will do what you say you do. So it's essential in that world. Competition is known for lying and going behind people's backs. And even in the NFL, we've heard all the stories about cheating, about deflated balls and all kinds of nonsense, because winning is most important. But is it? Thank you, Mr. President. So the path from competition to collaboration: put people first, live life with an ever greater vision, act congruently, and yield to a higher consciousness. This really, I sat with quite a while to think about, the idea of yielding to a higher consciousness. And what I realized was that in our lives when we evolve, it's not that we get something that evolves us. What we do is we let something go. Think about it. Think about when you were young. What was life like in this country? What were race relations like in this country when you were a teenager? How did our culture respond to the idea of gay, lesbian, transgendered, bisexual? How did our world deal with that? And look how we've changed. But we didn't change because we took on something. We changed because we let go of something. We let go of a limited thought. We let go of a judgment, of an idea that something was wrong. And when you let go of those kind of things, life seems to expand, even though the process was yielding to something greater. By letting something go, by moving into a different state of how we relate to life. So we've got a pathway here, and these are the four elements of it that I bring you this morning. Put people first. Live life with an ever greater vision. Act congruently. Yield to a higher consciousness. So I ask you, can you put the people in your life first?
Sure.
Can you live your life with an ever greater vision? Can you act congruently? Can you yield to a higher consciousness? If you can, then what's happening in your world is that you're learning to play.
That's cool.
Because the idea of being in collaboration should be fun. It should be joyous. It should be a delight to relate to people in a way that everybody gets to win. This is the idea that we want to share in this community. This is where we're taking this idea of the science of mind into a life that is joyous, that is connected, that is filled with love. I've always enjoyed the idea that life together, our time together makes us better, that we are better in the world when we are together. That idea really speaks to me because we lift one another up. And when we lift one another up, we are lifted up. By seeing the truth of each of us, we get a better life for ourselves. We cannot be separate from the gifts that we give to others and the blessings that we offer them. And we're going to continue doing that and evolving that and finding our way with that through time. Thanks for being along for this joyous ride. We're going to get to play a lot around here. And I had one other thing that I wanted to share with you this morning. We no longer have a school, yet we have a sign that says we have a school over there, so we have to change it. And we're going to put up a sign that says Youth and Family Center along with our name and all. But we're going to change this other one too, because it's time to really just upgrade our signs. And we're going to add a new tagline that I wanted to share with you all this morning. We're an open and affirming community. And if you question what that means, it means we welcome, embrace, affirm, and accept all who seek to know the divine in their lives. That is what unites us. We are not united by any other element of our lives. We have this great ability to see the presence of the divine in one another, and we must celebrate that in all that we do. It doesn't matter what faith you came from. It doesn't matter what political party you want to be part of. It does not matter where your heritage is from or anything else about you. If you want to know the blessings of the divine in your life, this is your place and always will be. And that we can do with one another as long as we choose. And I hope it's a real long, long time. I love you very much. Thank you.